Okay, I think we'll get started, and this will be recorded. So if folks join a little late, they can catch the beginning on the recording. So I first want to start by thanking everyone for joining us tonight and taking the time out of your evening to be here. It looks, based on the chat, it looks like we have a lot of people from all over the country, and we truly appreciate you guys being with us tonight. So. Our hope is that you guys find value in what we share tonight, of course, and most importantly, that you leave with hope, whether this is for your own recovery journey or for someone you love. Really, the intent of tonight is meant to be really educational and supportive. And we certainly are not going to have enough time to cover everything in an hour. But our goal is really to help you get a better understanding what recovery can look like, and what options may exist beyond what you have maybe already been told. So I want to briefly outline how the evening will flow. We'll begin by hearing from someone who I think you're going to find very inspiring. She's a stroke survivor, who has a very, very powerful story to share. And then, of course, after that, we'll have Dr. Omar Ahmed will walk us through how the brain recovers after stroke and what we're learning through neuroanimation. And then if time allows, which I hope it does, we'll have some time for some Q&A as well. I do want to note, I did mention this, but the call will be recorded. So if you do need to step away or leave early for whatever reason, the replay will be sent out after the call. So I want to jump in by introducing our first guest, Beth Murphy. Beth is a lung cancer survivor. She's also a stroke survivor who really embodies persistence and determination in recovery. After being told that she would likely not walk again or use her arm and hand, she continued to pursue her recovery. And today she's opening doors. She is going on 3-mile hikes. And most importantly, and I think she'll mention this, her kids have their mom back. So with that, I am going to pass it over to Beth Murphy, and we'll make sure she's off mute here.
Am I
There she
good?
and if you guys want to, in the top right corner of your Zoom account, you'll see a view. If you want to change that view to the speaker, you'll just see Beth. Otherwise, you'll see obviously all the little pictures of everyone. So just so you know,
Okay.
if you're not familiar with Zoom, you can change the view of your screen. And then just another quick reminder to make sure you're on mute. That would be great. So with that, I'll turn it over to Beth.
Hi, everyone. My name is Beth Murphy. I'm talking to you from speaking with you from Long Island, New York. So it's fun because I went to Ohio back in what was it, October, November. And my story, as Michelle said, is it goes way back to 2001. I had cancer as well. Michelle mentioned lung. My lung cancer was from being at ground zero, and I had that in 2019. I had melanoma in 2001, but the bigger part is I had a loss. My husband was killed, murdered on 9/11 in the building. So my children were 4 and 7. I had a massive stroke. In between that, many other ailments, because I do believe stress is a factor in people's lives. 2021, September 9th, 20 years fast forward after 9/11, I have a massive stroke. I was an exerciser. I was a cheerleader. I was captain of cheerleading. I ran, I kickbox. I was powerlifting. So think about you trying to be healthy, you eat healthy, lifted 195 pounds over my head, strained it, and then I pulled another 225 deadlift. And I literally went home, and the only reason I'm alive, that son and daughter were home for 9/11. If they were not home, I would have died. So fast forward after that, day before 9/11, September 10th, 7 doctors walked into my room in critical condition. You will never walk again. Crying, my kids crying. They're now in their 20s. They lose their dad. Now they're going to lose their mom. No. That was a no. And that is the day I asked them for a TV in my room and promised my husband I would walk again. Not only am I walking, I'm hiking. And you know what you need to know? That neuroanimation changed my life. Look at my hand. Look, no movement. Look, I can move my fingers. I can pick up dice. I can pull a door open. Omar, Gigi, Preston, everyone has seen the growth. This is an athlete becoming an athlete again. That is miraculous. But Omar and the team at Neuroanimation, they care beyond the CAT scan. My doctors looked at my CAT scan of a hemorrhagic stroke and said, "You know what? Sorry, you need to deal with this. This is another loss for you." And I looked at them and said, "You don't understand. I'm feisty. I have done 10 clinical trials all over South Carolina. I even bought a condo there. I have a house here in New York, and now my other home is Ohio. Neuroanimation, I'm going back in March. And I'm blessed. I'm so blessed to have them in my life because everyone there is a human being that actually cares and is compassionate. When I had OT on Long Island, I actually had an occupational therapist say to me, "Beth, I don't even know what to do with you." Who says that? I have a master's in counseling, and I've been a guidance counselor. I was helping suicidal veterans when my husband was killed. And I was a guidance counselor. I was teacher, high school teacher. I mean, how do you say that to someone? You don't know how you're going to help them? Because I had nothing. I had no movement. My leg, I left that hospital with a cane. I yelled, I screamed, I wanted to stand up. They didn't want to get me out of bed, but I even had them tie me up. But I said, I need to research how I found neuroanimation was social media because I looked at constraint-induced therapy, which I'm going to be doing. I looked at clinical trials all over the country. I've done 10. I'm even in NYU study now for music. But when I tell you the only miraculous improvement was neuroanimation. I have to tell you, I looked at Omar and his love of people and his compassion and Gigi and the people there. And do you know what else it did? It opened a spark of my life for me. It's an exciting environment, and that environment will change your life. I have friends there now. I was like cheerleading some of the other patients. I'm helping them. I text them. We encourage each other. Some are coming back, I think, in March when I'm coming. So it's been a resource. And that's the other thing. You will get resources from all the people that you see there. And they know other treatments and they will tell you the same thing. I saw someone run that never ran since her stroke. I saw someone throw a ball. I saw a dementia patient speak 50 produce items. She couldn't even say a name of a country. And I said, "Oh my goodness, I have a master's degree. Is it? What does he have? What is he doing here?" I couldn't believe the miracles I was seeing. But my miracle, I walked to an Ohio State game 2 miles and 2 miles back. Then every day after 3 hours of intense beauty underwater in an animated setting. I would then go to all the beautiful places in Ohio, all these parks, and walk. And I'm like, neuroanimation. And the team is giving Beth back. And guess what Beth now has? Her kids. And I'm a grandma. And now I told Omar, I have to learn how to do that diaper now. That's my goal in March because how I want to be the best grandma. So that will happen because he knows. My saying is if there's a why, there's a way. So even if it's for you to cut your meat tonight, or if it's for you to cook that meal again for your husband, your wife, your child, your mother, your neighbor, you're going to have hope on levels. You're going to brighten up. There's lights that go off in your brain, and you're like, I cry to my kids. Can you believe? I shake their hand, and then the tears come. So I will be there for anyone in this 200-person call because as a person that helped people my whole life, my goal is to be one of those people that changes the lives of many. And even if it's you call me, you email me, I miss my job and I had to leave after my husband died. I left, and then I left again as the senior deputy commissioner at labor because I had a stroke and was told never, never, never. You go to neuroanimation, it's what can we do? Yes, yes, yes. It's all forward moving. When we drive, think of it this way. You don't look in the rear view mirror the whole time driving, you look forward. And if you look in the rear view mirror of all the things you can't do, recovery stops. And then it stops when you listen to every therapist that says, you're not going to get past 6 months, you're done. I'm 4.5 years later, so please believe me, it's miracle. It's miracle. It's a miracle. And John Hopkins, thank you, Omar and the team at Neuroanimation for not stopping and believing in us.
Thank you, Beth.
Thanks.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing.
Sorry for the cry, but
No,
it's
first, you don't ever
touching.
have to
It's
apologize.
it's just a touch. It's just a beautiful place. Everyone needs to know that.
Well, thank you. All right, so Beth's story clearly reminds us what's possible on a human level, and to help us really understand what's happening in the brain during recovery, I'd now like to introduce Neuroanimation's CEO and founder, Dr. Omar Ahmed.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you, Beth. I think you nailed it
Mhm.
when you said we love people here and we believe in the human spirit and in the journey that stroke survivors go through, and we match that spirit and that energy with our life's best work that's very scientifically grounded and based. And when that comes together, we do see amazing things like your own story. So I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation, and I want it'll be sort of quick, but the goal will be to have questions. So please write them out and be prepared to ask them. I'd love to give more information in more of an open dialogue at the end. We'll go ahead and hmm, start the presentation. Okay. So the title can, let's see. All right. So the title is Brain Recovery Beyond Expectations, Your Path Forward After Post-Acute Stroke Care. And this applies to a large body of people. It's not actually just stroke survivors, and it's not just right after post-acute care. So if someone had stroke and they went into the inpatient ward in the hospital or stayed in an inpatient rehab facility and got discharged. So it's really for anyone at any time period after the stroke. And what we'll start with is what most stroke survivors are told at some point, okay, in their journey, which is this is as good as it gets. And it's really interesting for us going through so many clients and stories and talking to them, the different versions of this. I've heard clients who have gone to some of the best rehab hospitals around the world, and they were told this in their acute period, in their chronic period, that you're just not going to get better. And we don't believe this, we don't see this, but there actually is a lot of scientific basis to this. And the reason why they say that because of something called a plateaued recovery. And I'm sure most of the survivors have heard this term, this dreadful term, which we believe in breaking, but it is a term that's out there and it's based upon kind of how things happen in stroke recovery today. Okay, and this graph really reflects most of the data on stroke. You have a normal motor performance, and after stroke, it goes down to a very, very low level. And you recover some of that movement in what's called the acute period. And sometimes you're in an inpatient rehab facility and you get discharged and you plateau. And this is kind of true. This is what all the data on over 400 clinical trials in stroke recovery show. In fact, it doesn't matter where you go for traditional rehab, you will plateau to this level. Now, even though most stroke survivors are told this, right, that you'll hit hit this plateau, um, there's there's a possibility there, right? Which is, what if this assumption is totally wrong? What if you can break that plateau? And that's really what the whole point of neuroanimation is. And, before we started the company, I was a faculty member at Johns Hopkins. I was the director of innovative biomedical engineering for over a decade. And we were tasked with this, breaking that plateau and pushing clinical care forward. So, just a few things, though, about stroke recovery that, as is. And stroke care is excellent, okay, in the inpatient, but it's excellent at saving lives. It's also excellent at something called TPA, which is an anticoagulant or mechanical thrombectomy. So these things can lead to normal motor outcomes or much better motor outcomes. But stroke care is not good at restoring function after discharge. And we saw the graph of the plateau. And the question we ask is, what if there is still untapped recovery waiting? So you do recover some in the beginning, and something very magical and amazing is happening in the brain that gets you that first part of the recovery. So the question is, what if we were able to harness that power after? And that's what we do at neuroanimation. So you heard from Beth, and I'm going to show you some video of other clients, including Beth. I'll show you some of her gains that we recorded at the end of her therapy. One thing to keep in mind, um, all of these clients were years past their injury, okay? And these are all new movements that they achieved. And we focus on new things at neuroanimation. It's not just movement, it's also cognition, mental clarity, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But because of the relevance for stroke, I'm going to show you some amazing things with new movements. So we'll go ahead and I'll start this video. This is our first client, Maddie. Maddie is an amazing human being, like Beth. She's an influencer and an advocate for stroke survivors all around the world. We've been very privileged to have her as a client of ours. When she came to us, she had very limited controlled extension of her hand. So she had lots of tone, wasn't able to really voluntarily extend the hand in ways that she wanted to do. By the end of the program, she was opening doors. She was able to lift objects, and she was able to even do a pincer with her fingers. And it's absolutely remarkable that this is occurring 8 years after her AVM. So 8 years after her stroke, when there was a bit of a plateau. This is Maddie opening a door. Controlled extension, leading to a controlled ability to lift the object, and she actually lifts that one over her head, um, which was a first for her, and a controlled release. And of course, the pincer, which we're going to work on more. She's actually here for her third boot camp. Whitney also developed, she was a little bit more functioning, but she still had these limitations in a plateau. Um, Getting her as close to normal as possible now, which is truly miraculous. She has controlled extension of her thumb, which was one of the things she wanted to work on when she came to our program. Using both hands came out of it involuntarily. So one of the really neat things we see with a lot of our clients is they develop an ability that they don't even notice it happen. It just comes back online. They start using their hand, they start using their foot in a way that they didn't use it before. And also running was one of her goals. She couldn't do that before the program. So now we'll watch at Whitney's gains. And that's Whitney using both of her hands. She sent me a wonderful picture of that when it happened. The other thing that we have a very strong cognitive side to it. A lot of stroke survivors suffer from aphasia, mental clarity problems, brain fog. We see very strong resolution in there too. Whitney had emailed me about some of those other gains, which were absolutely phenomenal. So you saw Beth. She actually showed her hand dexterity live, but I'll show it again. This is in her exit interview, and it's a clear video of it. I think I don't think the audio is coming through. Maybe that. I'm not sure the audio is coming through, but she's talking about the other things that she did, gains. Now, Shelley is a really interesting case. Shelley wasn't stroke, but it goes to the other aspects of neuroanimation, the other types of clients we serve, which are pretty vast. So Shelley had debilitating balance problems for about 3 years. She couldn't stand, she couldn't walk. She would fall up to 30 times a day. So she used a walker. She would fall even within the walker, and she used a wheelchair most of the time. When she came to our program, she was she fell. We couldn't really do a lot of the assessments with her. And you'll see in this video where we're doing a sit to stand test, you'll actually see her kind of fall and the coach, the neuroanimation specialist, holding her. And then you'll see what happens after 15 days of our therapy. So again, the key point to this is that it was all new movements. So I'm going to talk about, so why is this happening, right? What is the science behind it? And there's a lot of science and a lot of technology. Again, we did a lot of work for over a decade at Johns Hopkins, and it was the basis from that work that we started neuroanimation and pushed what we did there far beyond. And what is really going on? Well, it turns, I want you to take away two key concepts from this, which is motor learning and neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is a very overused term. What neuroplasticity really means is it has to do with awakening kind of dormant or residual neurons in the brain, even creating new neurons in the brain and activating adjacent neurons to damage. So where they kind of upregulate functionality that's gone. When a place in the brain is damaged or dead, uh, the brain requires neuroplasticity to regain that function. And that's what happens when, especially in the early period after stroke, the brain naturally does this. What we do at neuroanimation is we harness that ability, and we can do it sort of at any time. So neuroanimation, it's designed to drive true neurological recovery by engaging the brain in true motor learning. I want to be clear, motor learning is very different from motor activation. Okay. When we move in our day-to-day life, if you go to therapy and someone tells you to do 1,000 repetitions, there is no motor learning going on with that. Okay. Motor learning is a complex thing. If I were to ask you to go learn to play the trombone or go and learn the piano, it would take you months. That's motor learning. Okay. Or if you're learning a new sport and you don't know how to do it, or a toddler learning how to walk, that's motor learning, and it takes a long time. When you're in a true state of motor learning, okay, that's when your brain is signaling itself to generate new neurons to handle those new tasks, to create new networks within your brain to increase the blood flow. So we don't tell a patient how to move. We create very complex 3D tasks in a program that the brain wants to solve. So survivors aren't repeating exercises, they're not doing simple tasks. They're intensely planning, adapting, and executing movement in real time. And this combination is really important because the brain doesn't change from simple movements. Okay, I want to really emphasize that. And I think survivors know that instinctually, that simply doing movements without engaging the brain is not going to help rewire the brain. The brain changes when movement and learning are tightly coupled, and that's what we do. So again, why neuroanimation drives neuroplasticity is it triggers genuine motor learning. It's complex 3D motor planning, it's continuous sensory feedback, and it's dynamic goal-directed behavior. So I'm going to show you a video of what neuroanimation is. But during the therapy, clients move because the brain wants to solve these complex problems. So what we do is the technology has 12 cameras. It's very high fidelity. They track all your body parts. And then we map your movement into animals onto a screen where you have to move them. And it's very difficult. I'm going to show you a video of clients doing it. And it looks easy, but it's not. It takes a lot of strength to learn. It's very cognitively exhausting. We do this for 3 hours a day where they learn how to move these fish and animals underwater. And that's where the maximum learning occurs. So this is a video of various people playing. So you see her moving her hand, which is actually controlling the fish. See Maddie there playing. Watch how she concentrates. That's Janeth, which is a remarkable story I'll talk about soon. That's kind of what happens in the environment where you're moving fish with your micro movements of your hand. Okay. So again, motor learning. So this is what I just showed you in those videos is true motor learning. Okay. And it's one of the strongest known drivers. So if you can get the brain in a state of motor learning, okay. So where you have to learn something new, especially with the affected limb. We know from the science that it's the strongest driver of synaptic growth. This is key. Motor learning leads to actual new brain cells forming. We actually showed this in a seminal conference proceeding at the Alzheimer's and Dementia Conference, where we showed growth in the hippocampus, in the motor learning areas, and in the memory areas. Okay, so when you can activate true motor learning, this is what creates new neural structures. It upregulates residual pathways. What that means is when there's brain damage, there's still brain cells at the peripheral of the damaged area. You can turn those cells back online to take over the functionality. And it leads to very lasting neuroplastic change, which leads to new movements and cognitive gains. Now, what we see is remarkable at our clinic. So there's a test we use in the industry for stroke recovery called the Fuglemeyer. Most stroke survivors may have heard of this, they may not have. To get a statistically significant gain in the chronic period, you have to get about 5 points on the Fuglemeyer. Standard PT and OT does not do this. It will plateau. The variance is within noise. The previous gold standard was a program at UCL in London where they did 90 hours for 3 weeks and they get about a 6 point gain. Some other scientists have done 6 to 5 point gains. So what we're seeing is about a 10 point gain on average with our clients in the upper extremity. Now, I want to be really clear that this is more meaningful because we track something even finer in that we're looking at new movements. And I think we're the only group that does this. So we look at what movements went from 0 to 1. So in the Fuglemeyer, you can score it where you can get a 1 to a 2. from moving a little better, but it's actually more meaningful if you went from a 0 to a 1. And that's something that we emphasize in our program is we want to see even tiny new movements. And they may seem tiny, but they give the client something to work with. And now you can go and reinforce the strength and can continue to do functional tasks. So I'm going to jump really quick to cognitive gains and cognitive recovery. So again, just like new movement for stroke clients, we see incredible gains in cognition. This is a case of ours of a very amazing client named Janeth Garcia. So she was a quantum physicist at Ohio State University. Before neuroanimation, she could not think clearly. So she had a stroke about a year and a half ago, a little longer. She got TPA, so she had a very good motor recovery, but she had lingering cognitive problems. She couldn't think clearly. She couldn't do math or physics. She couldn't concentrate for longer periods of time. And now there's a complete resolution of these symptoms. She has cognitive endurance, abstract thinking, complex problem solving, improved motivation. So we track cognitive scores at the beginning and the end of the program and also daily. And she went through our 12-week program, which is 2 days a week. And we could watch her cognitive scores, which started very low and gradually start to increase over a month. And then they just kept going up. And if you look at the spectrum, it landed where you would expect a quantum physicist to be. It's a truly miraculous case. She still stays in touch with us, and I believe she's starting work soon in another state as a quantum physicist. So cognitive recoveries, I'm just going to briefly go over that. We see a lot of clients who have aphasia or they have other problems. They know what they want to say and it comes out now, right? Which was a problem before. Language returns. We had a client all the way from the UAE come who was bilingual. He had early onset dementia, Parkinson's. By the end of, in the beginning of the program, he was just kind of mumbling in Arabic, which was his mother tongue. By the end of the program, he was speaking fluently in English and in Arabic. We see a lot of clients who have understanding before their expression. We had another client return to work. She was a nurse. She was unable to kind of write her thoughts out. And she had resolution after that and a lot of mental clarity. I want to share a beautiful quote by an amazing client of ours named Jackie Miller. So she's also a social media star, and she had a stroke, and she's dedicated a lot of her story and her recovery to help others and to inspire others. And it's an absolutely admirable and amazing thing that she's doing. She's in our second boot camp now, but in her first one, this is what she wrote about her recovery. It's weird and very cool to feel the quiet places in my brain wake up again, tiny sparks turning into steady light onward. And that's a picture of her and her adorable daughter who was with her. So let's look at quickly the science and a little bit of the science. So these are the world leading stroke neurologists, okay? From Harvard, it's David Lin, Johns Hopkins, John Krakauer, UCLA, Stephen Kramer. They wrote a kind of call to action for what they termed as high intensity, high dose rehab. But the conclusions were that recovery requires brain engagement, which it doesn't usually give. And traditional care is too short, it's too low, and it's too passive. And that's the key. The passivity is not engaging the brain. The graph in the middle is our very first clinical trial on a very old version of our system. What we do today in Ohio is far more advanced. But even back then, we showed double the dexterity by using neuroanimation. And these are some quotes of those physicians in that paper. So there's a risk to reward analysis sort of neuroanimation and why this must be offered and information must be given. It's very low risk. It's non-invasive. There's no pharmacology, there's no drugs, there's no surgery, but the risk of not offering it is greater. There's a permanent loss of function, reduced independence, increased caregiver burden, and cognitive decline. So we'll conclude, with a simple saying that when the upside is so life-changing and the risk is minimal, patients deserve to know this exists. Currently, it's available, the older generation of our system at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and then the newer one is in Columbus, Ohio, which we call the Generation 3 system, which is far, far more advanced, and we highly recommend you coming there to our center. We're also opening in Kentucky, and we plan to be by 2027 in most states. It's delivered in a custom environment. Uh, the program is universal, really, but we do work on things for individual clients and individual goals. It's supervised, measured, and very data-driven. We do a lot of testing on the day you get there, on the day you end, and in between. It's not a replacement for PT and OT. It's the puzzle piece that's missing from that. It belongs alongside medications, PT, OT, speech, diet, and exercise. So again, it's really the missing pillar of modern stroke care. To providers, your patients deserve access to this information. And to survivors, I want to leave with that recovery doesn't end after post-acute discharge or even years later. If you've been told you're done improving, you're not, and there are ways to improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. So we do have some time for Q&A. Either you can take yourself off mute and ask a question, or feel free to put it in the chat as well. There were a lot of questions on location, which Omar just addressed, but yeah, please come off mute if you have questions.
Hi, can Omar speak also to the effects and the results you're seeing with other maladies being TBI? He spoke about a little bit about cognition, but we've had a couple of questions I've seen, and I have a friend who's going through that with her son. Can he speak to TBI as well?
Yeah, yes, of course. So all of this pertains equally to TBI. So stroke is actually considered a traumatic brain injury, but when in terms of things like concussion, all brain injuries will affect the what's called the neurovascular biome. So it affects blood flow into the brain. And this is something that we affect very directly and improve very directly in the midbrain region. So what do we see from a client result? Mental clarity. So a lot of the TBI clients come in with confusion, mental fog, brain fog, fatigue, mental fatigue. They get very, very fatigued by the end of the day. We see very strong resolution of these symptoms and very strong resolution of these results. We've had a client who had a TBI who hadn't spoken anything in 5 years. So it affected his neuromotor output for his vocalizations. And for the first time, he spoke 16 words. So we do see, we see a very wide spectrum of effects. A lot of them we're learning, right? Because when you strengthen the midbrain, you have these peripheral effects. And it looks like TBI is a strong suit. So because of the focusing on the hippocampus and the motor learning, which activates that area of the brain. One thing is the study that we did that was presented at the Alzheimer's and Dementia Conference, that was actually on TBI patients who had a propensity to develop Alzheimer's.
Omar, can you speak to, there's a question in the chat about visual impairment due to occipital damage.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. It started off anecdotal. One of our clients reported visual improvements, and we thought it was probably placebo, but it then became consistent. Three of our clients had to change their prescription. And the more we researched, so we actually just met a neuro-ophthalmologist at OSU who was like, I'm looking for this. He's actually visiting tomorrow, um, because there is a retinal nerve hippocampal connection. And so we do hypothesize that strengthening again the hippocampal functioning is going to improve those types of visual impairments. This is not going to repair everyone's vision, but I think, and this is something we need to test further, that if the damage is related to the area that we do strengthen, yes, there will be hopefully resolutions. And I need to qualify that we have to do more statistical studies. This is just anecdotal, but it's very strong anecdotal. So we have seen some improvement, well, drastic improvement in some of our clients with vision.
Any other questions?
Hi. So is this for younger kids as well? Because my daughter, she is 4 now, but she had TBI when she was 2.5.
Mm-hmm.
And so she has cortical vision impairment. She can't talk and anything like that. So is this for kids as well?
How does she have any vocalization at all?
No, sometimes she says some words on
Mm-hmm.
her own, but not like intentional.
Okay, but are they discernible words?
It seems so, yeah, because we have different language and she
Yeah,
says something like that
yeah.
in our language. And yeah, so
And how is her motor functioning?
she has better motor function in her right side, but like left side is not that good.
Can she move her arm or is it completely?
Left side, she moves a little bit when she really have to, but she
Yeah,
doesn't move her fingers at all.
yeah. So,
And even her eyes, everything, like she doesn't want to look from her left eye.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and she's too fade. I mean, like for liquids.
yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would highly, so there's a height issue with us with the technology, though I think we're moving towards, because the camera system has to track the client. So as long as they can track the client, we can do it at any age. We've had 9-year-olds, but 4 might be a little bit too small. But I'd love to, if you want to send your information, I can keep you up to date on when we're going to, because we are opening a center that's targeted more towards children. So we have seen children in our center and they've done very, very well. So I would say that, just keep in touch so we can, when we get something that will handle the lower heights, I think it would be something that would be it's worth a try for sure.
Yeah, and but it does it also works for a spinal cord injury or not?
I don't, we haven't tried it with spinal cord, right? It's not targeted towards downstream. However, any residual strengthening of the brain can have positive effects on nerve conduction, for example. So it could, but again, it's more hypothetical. So we would want to see. A lot of times, the way I like to look at it is there's no risk and there's very much the possibility of a reward. So for conditions that we don't have clinical data on, I still would recommend it because there's no downside and there is a possibility that there could be benefit.
Okay, so could you tell the procedure, how it goes, like how it starts and kind of like that, and also about costs and everything?
I'm
Yeah, so we have 2 programs. So Michelle, do you want to go over the
yeah.
program details? Yeah.
I can, or what I was going to offer too, I'll be sending out an email after the webinar with the recording, and then also a link in there to schedule a one-on-one consultation to speak to specifics in your situation, right? Go over costs, logistics, and really answer any questions that are unique to each of you. You'll be getting that email immediately after this webinar.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome, and I look forward to connecting with you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Omer, there were a couple questions in the chat just about overall fatigue, um,
Oh
mental
God.
confusion and fatigue.
Sorry, can you say that?
Yeah.
Sorry, there's someone I'm going to see if I can mute.
Yes, yes, I'm close by. I really feel for some of my team though.
Um, Dean, do you mind? Was it
Yeah,
muting?
no, not during COVID, but definitely during the 1 day a week, you know.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So there's some questions about just overall fatigue, how the program would help with overall fatigue, and just mental confusion.
Yeah, that's one of the strongest areas. So we see every client has almost, I'd say every single client has an improvement in motivation and in, fatigue, mental fatigue, it goes down. So it's really the hallmark of the effect is that you have this immediate boost in mental clarity, mental alertness. I mean, it's very stark. It's no, people will, that's the first thing they say is this, I feel elevated mentally. And, when you're coming in with brain fatigue, it's very, very drastic. We had someone come in for our 12-week program who was extremely skeptical. They had suffered a stroke and had debilitating fatigue after 2 hours in the day. Just like Janeth, it was a complete resolution. So and we watch it, right? We track people's cognitive scores, their processing speed, and these things are correlated to mental endurance and mental fatigue. So it's very, very effective for that. For those areas, I would highly recommend it. I mean, it's very life-changing.
Thank you. And then another question about, have we ever had a stroke survivor go through the program and see no results?
Not yet.
All right. Any other questions before we wrap up for tonight?
Hi, I had a question. Um, I know that you mentioned that this doesn't replace OT, or PT in general, but when I guess let's say my sister had a stroke, she has weakness on the right side, especially her hand.
Mhm.
Would you still recommend that after her doing the boot camp, she will still have to continue OT to continue to increase, I guess, movement or obviously because everything's so expensive, you know? So I'm thinking like money wise, like how do we do all this in specific
Yeah, yeah.
able to
So,
afford it?
so your standard PT and OT should be covered by insurance, um, or Medicaid, or Medicare. And so we don't view this as replacing it all. It sits in addition to. So
Uh-huh.
you go through, it works hand in hand, so you go through neuroanimation and then you do your rehab because you want to stay moving. Usually we have a program and people will go through it. They'll continue, we give them actually a supplement to do at home from virtual reality, and then they come back to the program. So we try to chart out a pathway to the maximum success for each client.
And
But we don't even, it's totally separate from rehab. So whatever you're normally doing, you do. Whatever
okay,
are recommended to do by your doctor, you do. We just, by putting this on there, it breaks that plateau.
okay, that makes sense. I think at least for us, like with insurance aspects, like I think we've hit the perspective of providers telling us that this is all she's gonna get, you
I
know. So
see. Yeah.
that's where I'm like, okay, where does it go from there? Because obviously OT is like
Yeah.
not
We
an option through insurance anymore.
Right. We would give you the supplement at home to do after the program is what we would do. So and we have virtual coaches who dial in and they
Okay.
they help with. So um we're very meticulous about our patients, our clients.
Okay. I guess one more question. How would you, like, does it depend on the person's inability to, like, not do certain things? Does that determine the many sessions that she would need to continue to do of boot camps, or how does
Yeah,
that work?
yeah, I think so. The way we see gains, you sort of just see this gain like a brick being laid in each time you come. And obviously people like, Whitney, she was close to the end. She was pretty high functioning, but we basically got the gains back to normal. right?
Okay.
And so the goal for us is to get every client there. And we see those bricks in every boot. So, there's going to be people who are starting very, very impaired. No, it's not going to bring you back to normal, but it's going to give you new movement. And
Okay.
now we work on that new movement. And the next time, so we look at, you increase your Fugelmeyer by 6 points this time, by 8 points that time, right? We're trying to get everyone back. And so it can be a process, but that is the work required, right? That's the investment in your recovery that's required to really get there. Nothing is easy, but we find our clients are willing to do the work and they see the gains.
Okay.
And I'll just add to that what Omar just said is that we're not seeing any reversal of gains either. There was a question in the chat. So no plateau to the gains, and we're not seeing any reversal of the gains. Omar, I
Thank
think we
you.
have time for maybe two other questions. In the chat, there was a question about balance.
Yeah. Yep,
Mhm.
balance is a strong one. I showed you the video of Shelly. I hope that came through clear. We see a lot of our clients have very strong balance resolution. We do the Berg balance test in the beginning and the end. I would say that Shelly's case was kind of miraculous, right? She put the wheelchair in the closet. She can walk now. It's a total life change. And then we had a 93-year-old client who is able to now lean over um, and 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 pick up things. Tina has a question. You want to?
Okay, hi. Yes, thank you for doing this. I have done many, many, many stroke studies, including stem cell,
Mm-hmm.
which didn't work,
Mm-hmm.
but I do like a lot at UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very interested in this. I've done many virtual reality studies
Mm-hmm.
and own virtual reality equipment from the studies, but this requires going to Ohio for what length of time?
For 3 weeks.
And then
And
do you have on-site hotel or how does that work?
yeah, Michelle will follow up. We have a partner hotel. We even are developing a little bit more for people who want meals and things like that to stay in. And it will all be provided for you, the information.
Okay,
It's
I set up a discovery phone call
yes,
already.
yep, yep.
Okay. All right.
Uh,
And so all those other studies would not interfere with this, like
Yeah,
stem
no,
cell
not
or
at all.
anything.
No, no. In fact, I
Thank,
think I would my guess, and it's just a guess, is
Mhm.
that it's going to help if you do both. Like my gut is that if you're doing the right type of stem cells with this, it will probably enhance the effect. I mean, it's a total hypothesis, but
Mhm.
that's what I would bet on.
thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Dean.
Yeah, hi, thank you. The question regarding balance was mine. I'm calling from Melbourne, Australia, with
Okay.
an English accent, but there you go.
You win the furthest distance, I think. I think you
Thank
take
you.
the cake on
Well,
that.
I'm quite competitive, so any win's a good win.
Perfect.
Um, but on that, yeah, quickly, my stroke was in 2023, October. I had a hemorrhagic stroke, basal ganglia. Cognitively, I've been spared to a degree, although I'm not quite as sharp as what I was. My physical deficits have been significant. The one I mentioned in chat regarding balance, I have quite severe proprioception and sensory loss.
Hmm.
I've been, like many of the people here on the course, on the seminar, I've been involved in a number of trials regarding sensory relearning. I've
Hmm.
seen some improvement.
Hmm.
I've had TMS, transmagnetic cranial
Yep.
stimulation,
Yep.
all of which has made some changes, which is
Yeah.
fabulous.
Yeah.
But looking at what you're talking about here, Omar, and the team, I've looked at and spoke to Brad when he was part of the team.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
a good 18 months ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then various things happened with me. I'm due to have surgery to correct some mechanical inversion and muscle shortening in my lower limb in my foot, a process called splat.
Hmm.
But following on from that, I'm very interested, and my wife and I are very much keen for me to leave Australia to come to Ohio and try this and see what the heck I can get from it. So the
Yeah.
question specifically is around my very limited, though slightly improved sensory and proprioceptive
Yeah.
facets
Yeah.
of deficits on the left.
Yeah.
Do you see neuroanimation being able to work with that as then the output being improved balance?
I think there's a strong possibility that it would help. Here's why. So the fundamental action of neuroanimation is actually proprioceptive movement. That's what's going on. When you're controlling something on the screen and you're not looking at your hand, you're looking at the screen. So it's proprioceptive awareness that guides the animal. There's a lot of science behind proprioceptive working and motor learning. Okay, so
Yes.
they're intimately related in the brain. We have seen good resolution in some cases where it's really that proprioceptive loss that led to balance problems. So I think it's
Yes.
working that proprioceptive gains. I always say this, like there's no guarantees, right? We've got, but this is probably the best bet. So,
Yeah, yeah,
you know,
yeah. Well, I'll obviously liaise with Michelle about the nuts and bolts and logistics of this.
great.
But
Yeah.
I'm really very, very excited about the opportunity.
We'd love to have you. Yes, I remember your email early on. This was
Yes.
this was way before we had the center open.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Well,
was.
it's
I've
great
kept an
to
eye on
see
you
you.
guys. So yeah.
Yeah.
Likewise, likewise.
Yeah.
And thank you. Thanks for answering that. And I'll touch base with Michelle after I receive the recording.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. We are at the 8 o'clock, well, East Coast time. So just to kind of wrap things up, we did record the call. I will send that out in an email. There were a lot of questions about your specific situations, your loved ones. There'll be a link in that email to schedule a free consultation. Obviously, no pressure, just to get the support you need, answer additional questions that maybe didn't get addressed on this call. So with that, thank you to everyone. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Omar, for presenting tonight. And we look forward to connecting with you guys soon. So thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. All right.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye.